I took a hot yoga class this morning and I swear I am still sweating from it. I'm so hot. Anyways, today we're doing a full face of Pat McGrath. I feel like it's been a little bit since I've done it, and I haven't done a full face with Pat McGrath since the bronzers launched. So I just feel like I've got to do a full face including the bronzers. Okay, so we're going to do that. I saw that Pat McGrath Labs has a 30% off sale going on right now, hopefully. Actually, it might not be. I don't know. I don't know when I'm posting this, but the day I'm filming this, they do have a 30% off. And I do like to do a full face of Pat McGrath video occasionally, just because they're one of my favorite brands. I love catching up, doing new full faces of the newer and older products. So let's get into it. So for primer, Pat, I love you, but please come out with a new primer because I'm tired of using the same primer that I don't really care for every single full face video, but we're going to use the Skin Fetish Sublime Perfection Primer. Why Pat McGrath has not come out with a glowy primer yet is beyond me, because I feel like if any brand could do it, Pat McGrath could. Am I out of this? I have an empty. Oh my goodness. Okay, well that solves my issue because now I can use what primer I want. I tried. Ouch. I just broke my table almost. Okay, then since I'm already cheating, but that's not my fault. I'm just gonna throw on the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Primer. I feel like Pat McGrath needs to expand upon her baseline at this point, right? I mean, I know she's gonna come out with cream bronzers very soon, not bronzers, cream blushes very soon, but it's been a few years since she launched the, foundation, concealer, powder, primer range. I want some new innovations here. A lot has changed trend-wise with complexion since the launch of those. So I would love to see something different because my full faces are always the same products. But I'm happy I'm out of that primer because it really never did anything for me. I love this Danessa Myricks one. It leaves the prettiest wet glow to the face. And then for foundation, she only has one foundation. So we're going to use the Skin Fetish Sublime Perfection Foundation, which is amazing. I mean, this one I don't mind using over and over again because it's just beautiful. I almost squirted myself, but luckily I didn't because it came out not straight. I'm going to try this Say brush to apply it. But yeah, I would love to see her though, as much as I love this foundation and as it's amazing. But don't you think something full coverage from Pat McGrath would be really neat? Because this one is so lightweight. And do you remember when this came out, it was controversial because it was super duper expensive and it was like so lightweight that people were like, what the heck? But nowadays, people like this kind of vibe. Even though it is still really expensive, this is what's popular with foundations right now. But I would love to see a super full coverage one that almost mimics the formula of the concealer that she has. Or maybe a powder foundation just to mix it up, or a tinted moisturizer, something. I'd love to see an additional item added to the foundation range. But anyways, I mean, this is a gorgeous foundation. It is light as air pretty much and looks so good and natural on the skin. And I still think it's so funny what a big huff this caused when it first launched because people are like, this is not worth the money. And now so many people are like, this foundation's so amazing. I'm one of them. I was like, this foundation's not worth it too. And then now I love it because it is so lightweight. It is such a nice formula. I'm using a sponge now to finalize kind of pressing everything in. I honestly could use a restock of my complexion products from Pat McGrath because they are a bit old. I actually do have a backup of the foundation though, I think. So I should be good on that. Okay, eyebrows. That is one thing that Pat McGrath is missing from her line. So let me do those off camera real quick. Okay, so the winning eyeshadow. I wanted to do a newer one that I feel like I haven't done justice on covering. And it's the new mini eyeshadow palette in Sublime Smoke. I love this palette. I think it's so good for travel. I took this with me when I was traveling a couple of weeks ago, and this was perfect. 6 shades in this tiny little palette, and I did a video using all of the shades that I had in the big palettes, but I've never done a video just using this one specifically, so I did it a little different than that first video to get kind of like a smoky-ish eye, and I'll probably go in with a special shade later over top, but I'm going to start off with this shade right here. Oh, and by the way, I did put the Pat McGrath concealer on my eyelid just to work as my base today. I was admiring this foundation. It's been a few weeks since I've applied this foundation, and gosh, it really is so thin and skin-like. It has that second skin look to it. It really is worth the money. Well, not full price, but Pat McGrath always has sales, so it's worth the money at the 30% off that it's normally on. So just a little tip, if you don't care about getting the newest releases right away, always wait for a Pat McGrath sale. I always post when they refresh it, even though it's always 30 to 35% off, though I totally understand wanting to pick up the newest of new items at full price, but other than that, you know, I don't even really recommend picking up Pat McGrath from Sephora. Always pick it up from the Pat McGrath website because it's almost always discounted on the Pat McGrath website and bigger than the VIB sale. Okay, so now I'm going to... No, I did not mean to use that shade. I am scatterbrained. I just had a shaken espresso from Starbucks, and those drinks always got me like this. That's how I feel right now. I'm using this shade. It's a matte shade, and I'm applying this all over the lid. This is not a technique that I do too often, but it's really great for a subtle wearable smoky eye. You'll see obviously on the other eye I put a shimmer over top, but if you want it to be all matte, this is a great technique to do as well with this palette, because when you look at this palette you don't really think too much about not using the shimmers, at least me, because I'm always going to reach for a Pat McGrath shimmer, but every time I do this technique I'm like, yes, this is pretty just on its own with some false lashes, but I have to use the shimmer. There's something about Pat McGrath where I can't not use shimmers, but before we do that, I'm going to use my What's Up Beauty R108 in the darkest shade. Then we're going to smoke this out a little bit, get some more depth because I'm going for the wearable everyday smoky eye. I've complained about this in the past few videos, but it's making me so sad how eyeshadow just really isn't trendy right now. I mean, people are wearing eyeshadow, but it's pretty minimal. I missed when we all wore heavy eye makeup. Okay, and then I'm going back in with my What's Up Beauty R106. And I'm using this shade. You can use any of the 3 shimmers, but I thought doing something more golden bronzy would be fun, since the item that I'm most excited to use in today's full face is the bronzer, because I've never had a Pat McGrath bronzer to use in a full face. And then to finish off, I'm going to use the shimmer shade, and I'm going to apply it on the inner corner and underneath the brow. And that's a simple look with this palette. When I was on vacation, I used a lot of just these 2 together, and then the darkest shade as eyeliners. So this one is such a good one. I did also just film a Pat McGrath tutorial for my YouTube membership beauty buffs using the Mothership 10. If you join it, which don't feel obligated to, I have a whole lineup of tutorials with Pat McGrath and Natasha Denona palettes. So I have a tutorial for Mothership 1 through 10 of the Pat McGrath palettes. So in case you need some inspo, you can find some extra tutorials there. But I wanted to use this little guy because since it is a newer addition to Pat McGrath's line, I don't have a lot of coverage on it yet. Okay, let's finish up concealer. I'm going to use one of my all-time favorite concealers from Pat McGrath, the only concealer that she has. These are starting to oxidize a little bit, so I actually have a couple backups already, so I'm going to have to open those soon, but I use the shade LM9 on my under eyes. So I'm just going to put a little bit, starting in the heaviest area of darkness, which is the inner corner, and then a little bit out here to help me clean up under the eyeshadow. So I love this concealer because I feel like it gives full coverage, but it looks very natural as well. It's just always been one of my favorites. One of the videos that I posted recently was a top 3 in every category, and this for the 2nd year in a row has shown up in my all-time top 3 favorites. You just can't beat it, and this one was one that was a no-brainer. I immediately pulled it out because something about the consistency of this just looks so smooth and perfected on the under eyes. And it also has very minimal creasing. I don't think there's such a thing as a creaseless concealer, except for a really thin layer of the Fenty Beauty concealer, the lighter coverage one, not the full coverage one. That one actually really doesn't crease, but other than that one, a concealer is going to crease. You have fine lines on your under eyes from smiling and living life, but this one does get into those fine lines very minimally. But you see how good that looks? I keep this in my collection in multiple colors because I'll use them to spot conceal. I'm going to use M17 because I have this acne scar that has just been killing me. This is a little dark, but it's okay. I think I've lost some color. Ugh, that's not my color one bit. LM12, I think is what I meant to use. Yes. Whoops. Whatever, it's the bottom of my face. You see nothing. We'll put some bronzer down there, and it'll be like it never happened. Do you actually think I could use some extra coverage underneath the nose? It seems really red there. Anyways, if you are picking up some Pat McGrath products, trying out some new products, the concealer is a must-have from the brand, if you ask me. Eyeshadows will always be #1 from Pat McGrath, the big motherships. And then after that, I don't know, she has so many good staple ones, like lip glosses, concealer, her powder is amazing, her foundation is amazing. It's tough to say what someone should pick up, but keeping the order, not hundreds of dollars. Okay, so to set the face, I'm gonna use my favorite powder, the Sublime Perfection Blurring Under Eye Powder. This says it's just for the under eyes. I use it for the whole face. She also does have a loose setting powder, but the loose setting powder is fine. It's a good powder, but the blurring under eye powder is just game changing. I'm gonna reach for it 9 times out of 10 if they're next to each other, you know. The under eye powder is where it's at. So I'm gonna use 2 shades. We're starting off with the white powder, which I use to set my under eyes. This powder is just so blurring and smooth, and it's in a pressed powder form, so it's really, really light on the skin. So I just use the light shade in the center, and then I use the medium shade to blur out the rest of my face. Ugh. How can something be so lightweight, yet so blurring? Love this. Another must-have from the brand. By the way, if you are new to my channel, I have so many videos doing full faces of Pat McGrath and reviewing literally everything she's ever come out with. So if you need any questions answered, I probably have a video covering it. But let's finish up with this lower lash line real quick. So I'm going to start off with the shade right here. And I'm going to run this along the lower lash line. I think we'll do something smoky today on the lower lash line. That will be fun. So we're starting off with this mid-tone brown along the lower lash line. And because I decided to be smoky, we're going to go in with this dark shade. And again, I'm going to put it along the whole lower lash line, and we'll probably get eyeliner in the waterline as well when we get there. Then make sure you blend the bottom into the crease. Gonna take a little bit of this shade again on a pointy brush. I'm just gonna run it over the inner half of the lower lash line. It'll bring some cohesion from the top and the bottom. Gorgeous. Now before I do eyeliner and lashes and all of that, let's do what I'm here for, which is to use the bronzers again. I am loving these bronzers. I stand by they probably aren't worth it because they are very expensive, but at 30% off, they are worth it, first of all. And they are a killer bronzer formula. It's just that there's a lot of other killer bronzer formulas out there, so this isn't like the top of the game or anything, but it is a really, really nice bronzer that I'm putting along with my favorites. Nude Honey has been my favorite for every day. It's a little bit more neutral, but I want to do kind of a more bronzy-ish feel today, so I'm going to use Bronze Dawn, which has more warmth to it. And I'm using a BK Beauty 111 brush, which just applies this particular formula beautifully because it's not very loosely packed. This is a harder pressed bronzer, so this just picks up all of the product evenly. You don't have to put too much pressure in it. So this brush is the perfect level of density for the Pat McGrath bronzer. Make sure you get it close to the hairline, which I am guilty of not doing, I'll be honest. Oh yeah, super bronze, and remember that mishap at the beginning? Let's just blend a little bit of bronzer right here. Oh, gorgeous. Thank you, Pat McGrath. Love these bronzers still. Now for blush, I lost it already. Oh, here it is. I pulled a Divine Blush Duo. I don't know if they still have these on the website or not. If not, the normal blushes are fine, but I wanted to use one, so I'm using Paradise Glow for a bronzy cheek. Because if I remember correctly, these were supposed to be limited edition, but I think they lasted longer than I thought. But this has some red in it, which I think is really pretty. With this look, as somebody who loves a cool tone look, I do a lot of warm tone looks. I think it was the eyeshadow palette that led me to doing this look today. But put that on. Gorgeous. Love these blushes. So upon initial application, when I first got the Pat McGrath blushes, I was like, they're fine, you know. But they last such a long time. They really are a top tier blush. And then for highlight, I picked out the Divine Glow highlight in the shade Golden Moonlight. Pat McGrath has a really phenomenal highlight formula. So I'm just gonna pop this on. It has some gold to it, which is why I picked it out. But what I like about the Pat McGrath highlight formula is how it blends into the skin. Do you see that? You can't see the starting point and finishing point of it. Really a good skin-like concealer, but extra glowy, of course. So it does look really pretty when you wear this on the skin. I love the finish of this so much. With whatever's left on my brush, I'll put on random parts of my face because the glow is just so pretty. Now for the eyes, as beautiful as this was, since this is a Pat McGrath tutorial, I wanted something with more oomph. So I picked up the newest quad from Pat McGrath. This is the Venusian Sunrise that launched with the bronzers. And there's a special shade in here that is quite special. So I'm just going to use my finger and pop this all over the lid. I mean, it's like, how can I do a full face of Pat McGrath without a little bit of glimmer on my eyes? So obviously not necessary, but instantly this is Pat McGrath-fied. Mother herself touched these eyelids, you know? So I had to. This quad I don't necessarily think is a must-have, but this glimmer shade is really, really nice. I really like the glimmer shade. The rest of the shades I have multiple of, but this shade, I mean, you saw what that did to the look. Now for eyeliner, I'm just going to use a pencil liner. I've been really into pencil liners. So this is the Permagel Ultra Glide Eye Pencil. So I'm just going to start it off on the tight line. This is not really cute, is it? And then I'm going to just smudge it across the upper lash line. I'm going to do some falsies today, so I'm not too worried about how the application is on this. Take an angled brush and just kind of push it around along the lash line. This brush is too stiff. Hold on, I need something softer. I switched to the Sigma small angle brush. Then I'm just going to put a little on the outer quarter of my lower lash line, and then I'm going to take a blending brush. Make sure it's a small blending brush. And I'm going to smudge it out just a little bit. Almost kind of smoke it out. And this Pat McGrath liner is very nice. I don't necessarily think it's like the end-all be-all of black eyeliners, but every time I use it, I really like it. And then mascara, I'm going in with one of my Pat McGrath favorites. This is the Fetish Eyes mascara. It does flake, but it's still really nice. This one was an all-time favorite mascara of mine for a while. It's not anymore because I just don't like the flakiness of it anymore. But it does make my lashes look really nice. I'm gonna pop on a pair of falsies and then we'll do the lip combo together. Okay, now lips. By the way, I put on a Japanese pair of lashes. These are Miche Bloomin'. I bought this at the K-Beauty store in LA. Number 34. They're quite glam. I really like them. Now for lips. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a dark brown lip pencil. Love their lip pencils. One of the most long lasting. And this is in the shade Ground Control. It's quite dark, so be careful. I was going to go for contour, but I use contour literally almost every day. So I was like, let me change it up a little bit. I'm going to have to blend this out a little bit. Okay, so it looks crazy, but I'm going to use the lipstick in the shade La Beija over top to brighten us back up. The only time I would really recommend purchasing Pat McGrath lipsticks is during Black Friday. They normally have like an $11 or $12 sale. Then these are totally worth it. I've never been super in love with Pat McGrath lipsticks, but they're nice. She has a couple of shades that I really love though. But as a whole, not my favorite luxury lipstick formula. And then for gloss, I'm going to use Gold Allure, which is just a gorgeous sparkly gold gloss to obviously go with these eyelids. Did you see that? Wow. Her glosses are some of the best in the industry too. So these ones are definitely a must-have if you're building a Pat McGrath collection. And boom, I mean, here is what turned out to be my bronzy Pat McGrath look using some new products, some old products, just coming back and sharing my love for one of my absolute favorite brands. And I love this look. For me, what the star of the show is probably this eyeshadow that I popped on at the last second. Also, the bronzer really pulled together the whole bronzy look that I ended up going for. Really, really happy with this look. So if you just type in Morgan Turner Pat McGrath, you'll have so many results come up if you're in need of knowing anything about Pat McGrath. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little get ready with me using a full face of Pat McGrath. If you like this video, make sure you like it and subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned because once the Pat McGrath cream blushes launch, I will be picking those up and reviewing them. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye guys, have a good one.